Lots of colors and shapes and stuff.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a brand spanking new episode of PT3600. My name is Ryan and Ashton, but joining me, like always on this journey, is our stream team leader,
Ashton. What is up?
But we have a very special guest. You know, we brought on Steven to talk about music, but let's bring in someone really special to the Primal Target, the PT Nation, that doesn't know. He's hidden in the shadows for a very long time, but he's here now. My good old pal Joey is here today. How you doing, man?
Bam. What's up, man?
Oh man. And obviously in this episode we are going to be talking about art because Joey actually designed our logo, the logo that you see slapped around all of the interwebs representing Primal Target, as well as our t-shirts and whatnot. And yeah, so any introduction things that you wanna talk about? Introduce yourself a little bit here.
Yeah. So again, my name's Joey. Kind of grew up with Ryan.
Yeah.
And then moved away to a different state. Went to college for graphic design. Currently working in the field as a freelancer, and yeah, just loving it. Always wanting to delve into creative ideas and conversation to further our understanding of the intrigue behind how art represents human emotion and interaction with society.
Wow, that went. I was like waiting to jump in there, and you kept going. I was like, man, that's pretty good.
That was a lot of information.
Is that what your professor told you, or is that
No? This is a
so
passion
tell us
of
about
mine.
your childhood.
no.
How were your parents?
yeah, that's pretty.
Would you
cool.
like me to paint it for you?
Oh,
right,
there you go. Yeah, Joey, it's really awesome to have you on here. It's like, you know, it was like some random spark that it was happening of like in my mind. I'm like, you know, I want to get a legit logo for Primal Target, and I was like, it's a complete shot in the dark. So I went on Facebook. I was like, well, I know Joey does stuff. So and then I just said to myself, I'm like, you know what? The worst thing he says is no. So I just messaged you.
No, I'm glad you reached out. I love doing, especially for, it's so much more like fun and engaging when I'm doing like design work for someone I know or like have like history with in general, because it's just, I'm so much more emotionally attached to the project and I really want to reach that like great final solution.
Well, that's cool because it's like I definitely, you know, you were saying like, oh, I can change it if you don't like it. I'm like, dude, you struck gold right off the top. Like, I wanted something that you could like slap on anything, and it definitely just worked with its own thing. So I really like the logo. So
I'm glad. Thank you.
It's not.
And let me ask you this: since you've done some stuff after that, I'm assuming you've done some graphic design after that. Is there anything that stands out to you that you feel like are some of your greatest accomplishments of like logo design or whatever you do for your job currently? Or maybe not like the top ones, or maybe some stuff that you
Well, starting off for my job, I do a lot of editorial design, which is essentially like publications, magazines, brochures. I work a lot with print collateral and typesetting. So that means, think of it this way, like if you just get a big paragraph of text, like no treatment to it at all, it's just like size 10, like normal Times New Roman font, like you don't want to read it. My job is to take all of that information and make it digestible and inviting. Within the theme of whatever publication it is or the branding of the company, etc. But I do have a passion for logo design. I think the project I'm most proud of would be, actually, I have a on the side, like I play video games with friends, of course. And we have a team for Rocket League, and I totally branded the team, made a logo and everything. And it's like, it's a visual typographic logo. So the team's called Redirect. I can send it to you so you can show it if you want and link it to this.
Yeah, sure. Just drop the link in the Discord thing that we're in, and then
definitely
I'll put it in the description so that everyone can go take a look.
So yeah, the shoot, this is going to take a while to explain the logo.
I mean, we got an hour. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I mean, not that long.
Yeah, okay.
Essentially, like a redirect in Rocket League is like someone passes it to you and you like hit it in
yeah.
an alternate direction.
Oh.
You know, Ashton knows.
Yeah.
I'm sure Ryan knows as well.
A little bit.
Basically, like the logo itself, which is actually my Discord logo for my own account. It's supposed to represent a ball, and then the sort of like the stem on the R is showing the action of a redirect, and then the full form of the logo is a sphere, like the ball itself.
Ooh, yeah.
And but it's also an R and a D, like redirect. So yeah, I was really proud of that. And then I personalized every logo for each member of our team. We have like 35 people.
Wow.
So yeah, I was really proud of that. That was a lot of fun.
Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like because I'm looking at it right now, and I was like, as you were explaining it, it's all like standing out now, and I'm like, oh man, now I look at it. Otherwise, it looks like a mouse or cursor, and I was I don't know what this is. And then now
also we'll play on gaming.
Yeah, and I was like, man, dude, you got it. Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, so what? I guess what kind of like struck the chord? I guess to find your passion, because I mean, obviously for us, we have the thing that started us into the line of doing the media with gaming and whatnot. So what's that thing for that you were sitting in high school, or were you sitting in middle school and you just started drawing and you're like, hey, this looks kind of cool, I could put this on a t-shirt? Like, what's happening with it?
My mom was always encouraging me to be artistic and to express myself in that form my entire childhood. So I painted it a lot. She honestly is. So I painted a lot. I did a lot of like charcoal work and sketching. Just whenever, that's how I got like my frustrations and emotions out, other than like playing sports and hitting people.
That's a good alternative.
Yeah. So the more complex stuff I couldn't understand, I would just paint or sketch. And then that was just pure art. So I'll get more into the definition of art later and what I believe it is, but that was just pure art. How I got into design was in high school. They required us to take a certain class. There's a group of classes called occupational education. So you could take like woodworking or metalwork or cooking. Literally basket weaving fell into that. I don't know how that's a job, but yeah.
Nice.
And then graphic design was one. I was like, all right, sit on the computer, be creative all day, or for at least for an hour. I'm down. So signed up for that. That was the coolest. Like, if you can just think of like some hipster 50-year-old who's like mentally stuck in his teenage years, like that's how cool the professor was.
Nice.
So, yeah, no, he would like stand on the table and get all animated. He'd let us play Halo every now and then on the computers.
Oh my god, no way.
Yeah, he totally got us to like buy into the class, and that's how I learned like the programs itself. I didn't learn like design fundamentals from him. I learned like Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, InDesign. At the time, Adobe Flash, which is no longer a program, it's now called After Effects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so stuff like that. I started to learn that, and then I got into this website called 99 Designs. It's just like a freelance free-for-all. Companies or individuals can post a design project. You can basically submit yours, and then they pick a winner, and you get paid. Never won anything, but
you tried. You tried.
Yeah. Oh, I tried many times.
There you go. Yeah, you were out there building your portfolio. Is essentially what you're doing.
Yeah. So I think what really hooked me with design was it's art with a purpose. Because I've always had this desire to like solve problems, and art, I felt like it was expressing something, but I didn't feel like it was going anywhere. Once you like it's out there now, but it's not like you can't go anywhere with that issue that's just been voiced. So that's where design comes in, and you're solving problems and creating solutions that communicate. And so that's where I fell in love with that, especially in college.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool, because like that's kind of that like turning point for me was like when I wanted to do the more of, I want to like learn I want to step away from Movie Maker, like, you know, and I wanted to start doing stuff with, you know, especially I took a class in like Photoshop and stuff, and that's where I started learning, oh, like you can take a really good photo and you don't need, you know, $6,000 camera to take a good photo. And like I can see where that spark, it just kind of happens, and then you're like, hey, like people could do this for a job, and then you kind of just run with it, and it kind of sounds like the same kind of story there. Yeah, so you were mentioning that you kind of have a definition of art. Can you give me like an elevator pitch of that, or is there?
No, I wanna pose a question actually. And prod your
whoa! The
mind
tables
about
have turned.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Damn. Friendly fire.
Okay.
We're
All
only
right.
20 minutes in.
Are we 20 minutes in already?
No, we're
What?
10. We're 10.
Okay, I was like, what? I don't have time. All right. So you think of art as like things in galleries, things that are sold. They're generally physical, like tangible things, right? They're not. Art can be like digital. It can be represented digitally, but it's when you think of art, you think of like the classic paintings, like from the Renaissance or like Picasso, Van Gogh, like stuff like that. I want to know what you guys think of art as being defined by, and then I'm going to
wreck our lives about it.
No, I'm not going to wreck your lives. I want to pose something because based on my definition, like many things can be art. It just it completely depends on how you view it.
Sure.
So,
I'll let Ashton go.
Okay. So I mean, me personally, I'm not super. I had a bad experience with art. Starting first grade, I had a terrible teacher where I went to school. Ryan, I don't know if you went to the same school as we did in first grade, but that ginger old lady was ruined everything.
Gingers have no say in the art community. I'm just kidding.
Hey, we had Steven on the show.
No, you're right. Okay, I take that back. Steven's a genius. Well, I actually did some design for Steven's album covers in the past.
Yeah, that's right. I didn't tell you about that. But anyway, so
so she kind of like totally shut me the fuck down. Throughout
this is shit.
Elementary school. Yeah, dude, she was like the Gordon Ramsay of art class. She's like, I grade on effort. Well, bitch, I'm trying real hard, and you keep making me do it over again. So like for me, I didn't get that rich experience, supportive experience that you did. So I guess my definition will vary a little bit. But for me personally, I look at art as many different things. It's more of like I look at it as more of like I guess like a way to show, like, you can tell a story, or you can represent like your emotions with it, because I mean you can kind of like tell with certain art, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not an artsy guy, but you can kind of tell like with a painting, you can kind of tell by like how the strokes are, like what the person was kind of feeling before, as they're painting it, if it's a little rough around the edges, they can a little bit more differently if it's been a soft. Yeah. So it's like, it's either like telling a story, or it's representing how you feel, or, it represents, who you are. It's basically another way to express yourself or tell a story. It's basically my straight up basic definition, I guess, for it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm not really a drawer. I find that for me, artistic stuff is really how you perceive things, like as a human. So like anyone can find anything artistic in my eyes. Like for me, I love film. And so when I watch a movie, I'm looking at it totally different than maybe like an average moviegoer. Yeah. And I think that everyone kind of has that of like, oh, they look at nature differently, and they can like appreciate maybe like, I don't know, to get spiritual with it, but like, this, to, I guess, not single people out. So the spiritual art around you or something like that. But for me, like film is, what I feel is artistic to me. I like the framing, the shots. Like there's a scene from Blade Runner 2049 where like Ryan Gosling is like standing, and you just see his like the shadow, and like you see this beautiful like orange, and it's like orange and blue, and it looks really awesome, and it totally pops out. Mad Max, like the new Mad Max reboot, has that kind of feel. So like that's how I kind of look at it, is that just anything that you can like, that totally, you're overcome with emotion that you just can't really explain it. There's just this feeling. And I guess to slap it on a t-shirt, art is more of a feeling to me. and like just how you kind of digest it is kind of what you feel. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's just kind of my thing.
No, that's very. So I want to preface this by saying art is individually defined by each person. I can't. My opinion does not mean I'm right. It's just this is my like what I've been taught and what I've come to acknowledge for myself as what I define as art, and that is a 3-part definition. The first is that I believe art cannot serve a purpose other than it to be art itself. If you're drawing, painting, designing, drawing anything for the purpose of solving a problem, it is not art, it is design. Second of all, art is a celebration and appreciation for the fundamentals in which it took to create that piece. So that could be painting, that could be metal work, that could be clay, that could be anything. You can appreciate the craftsmanship and the techniques used to create a beautiful piece. And that goes into color theory, that goes into brush strokes, that goes into how clay was molded, the metal work, the welding techniques, anything. And then third, I believe art poses a question, whereas design is the answer to a question.
So where would the, like, because you mentioned like metal work and stuff like that. So is there, what do you what are some of the like things that I guess, I don't know if you define or what you've studied is defined by art? Like, are movies and music defined as art, or are they
these? Okay, movies are, it gets a little tricky for me.
Okay.
There are movies that are fantastic works of art, in my opinion. Like the one that comes to my mind right now, The Dark Knight, the second movie in the trilogy by Christopher Nolan. That movie, not only is it the techniques used cinematically, color theory, script writing, the acting itself, everything about it is technically perfect or close to. Then you have, it poses questions about society and how people relate to each other and how they interact with evil and how they just that interaction there. And then third, it doesn't solve a problem. All it does is pose that question. Like it causes you to start to think. So to me, movies like that are art. Then you have movies like Marvel and stuff that's just like pure entertainment, boom, bash, like make a quick $1 or a quick $500 million or whatever.
Yeah. Like explosions, eye candy.
So like,
eye candy.
There's differences. Like movies are really tricky. You can tell when a director goes into a film, or the script writers, everyone has to be on board, because that's like a team of like 1,000 people getting together to make either a work of art or make money. I really haven't seen anything that's in between. There's no, it's, to me at least, it's pretty clear whether they were going to like create a piece of art or whether they were going to sell at the box office.
Oh,
yeah,
well,
like if they oh, go ahead.
Then I have a question for you. Then what would you consider like video games to be? Because to me, I feel like they're kind of a combination of both, because there's certain things that they do for the sake
would
of
that
being
not,
like artistic, but
would that not maybe fall into
design.
what Joey was talking about with movies, where like there's this, like how you were saying, there's like two types. There's the artistic route, or there's the let's make money route.
I think you're definitely on the right track with that. It's, to me, it's even tougher with video games because there's the level of interaction. You have a say in your experience, whereas a movie, your experience is completely dictated on their choices. You sit down and you watch their choice. It's not like you get to influence it at all. So there are some games that are art. They're much more of the, like, when I think about art and video games, I think about the Walking Dead series, where it's very cinematic. It's very, you can make choices throughout the storyline, but it's very cinematic. It's very beautiful. It's very storytelling, but it doesn't like solve anything. It's entertaining, but it's, you know what I mean? It's just, it's an experience. Whereas like, Rocket League's not exactly art. It's just a fun game.
Yeah. I can see what you're saying. So would you say that, can there be elements of art scattered throughout like all these mediums?
Okay, yes, of course. So I'm not saying that if something is not artistic, it's not well done or not beautiful. Things can be very well executed and very beautiful without it being art. But that's where design comes into play.
They just lean one way more than
Yeah.
the other.
So I think art has that that little twist to it where it's like we're asking a question. We're not telling you a solution.
Okay. So it's all like the eye of the beholder is the one that should be defining.
Of course, yeah.
whether
That's just
it's-
mine, personal. That's how I view
I can
it.
see how that is. Yeah, I can see that. Because like I you know I've seen movies like I said like there's those movies the new Blade Runner movie, Mad Max movie like
Exactly.
I
Mad Max
totally
is
look
posing
at
a question
them.
too.
Yeah, I totally look at them differently because how I am is like I love dissecting the movies of like, oh man, how did they get this? Like the
Yep.
whole night scenes in Mad Max are actually during the daytime. They just put blue gradient over it and to make it look like it's at night. Because otherwise it was like freezing cold when they shot it. So
Yeah.
and it's just like that's so cool to see how creative that they got with it just in order to finish the film and to put out like a great product.
Yeah. So yeah, that plays into the technique used to create the piece. They could have just as easily shot it at night and have been just as successful, but they chose to do it in a certain way to get a certain look and feel, to create certain emotions, and to match the color palette. Because like you said, there's much of the film is like very orange and bright and vibrant. So naturally, you want to balance that with blue because in pigment and pigment representation, which is what would display on a screen, you want orange and blue as contrast. So you want those dark night scenes and different emotions to match with blue, whereas the daytime is very orange and bright and vibrant. Those are choices they made to create a piece of art, and then the narrative of the story is what's posing the question.
Yeah, it's just so crazy. Cause okay, so we've talked about movies, we've talked about now kind of segueing into it. What about the script that goes with the movies? Could that be art? Can written word be art?
Yeah, poetry.
Okay, so just poetry, or can like a script or how storytelling is done?
Poetry is the most like that's just a very easy thing to say as like verbal art. I think like hip hop can be art, and as long as it's not, not modern hip hop at least. But certain, like anyone who has, yeah. So, got the blicky, yeah. Yeah. If the goal of the writer is to pose questions, I think of Kendrick Lamar does this all the time.
J. Cole does this.
Yeah, people like anyone who you would think of as like a lyricist in terms of hip hop. I'll get to writing later. Anyone who if you think of as posing questions about society or making us think about how we think about things, that is art to me. That is art was designed like before the camera came about, before video footage. Art was to create things that were beautiful that made you think, in my opinion. And so that went with poetry. You look at Shakespeare, narratives about the human condition, like falling in love with someone who's actually your enemy, lust and murder. If you look at like Macbeth, this is all human storytelling and like really engaging all parts of you, your person as you're viewing it or reading, but it doesn't solve a problem. All it's doing is saying like, yep, this is an issue. Do you acknowledge that it's an issue? Stuff like that.
So I guess kind of stepping through the timeline, do you consider things like Davy Crockett and War of the Worlds as art pieces? Like, because
War of the Worlds, 100%
over the
yes,
airwaves.
I agree 100% because again, they didn't solve a problem, they created a problem, and that's what art does. It asks a question that causes people to respond in a certain way, and it doesn't regulate how you respond. It's strictly throwing something out there that's like, yeah, let's see how they go. Roll the dice.
Yeah. So
sounds dangerous.
As a layman,
no, it's very dangerous, and it's nerve-wracking for the artist because you don't know if you're gonna bomb. Even if you have perfect technique in your creation, whether it's painting, verbal broadcasts like that, writing, photography, video game design, whatever. You don't. There's artist anxiety where you don't know if you, because you're being completely vulnerable when you're designing. You're putting your heart and soul into this and what you think is right, but you don't know how people are going to react, and it's nerve wracking.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when you create a YouTube video, you're like, hey, this might do well.
Exactly.
But
yeah.
who knows? We'll see how it
Yeah,
works.
we've been there. We've been there a few times.
So that's kind of crazy. So I guess let's go into a little bit switching gears here. Are there any like art styles that you particularly enjoy more than others, or any artists that you prefer more than others?
I tend to not prefer certain artists over others. I like to view them as eras and regions. Because like when you think of like paintings from anywhere from like the 15th to 17th century, or no, sorry, 16th to 18th century, so 1500s, 1700s, it's really separated by like region. So like the Italian painters were painting completely different than like German painters at that time. And it really plays into societal influences. But what's fascinating, I love art before the camera was invented, because nowadays, photography is definitely a form of art, and it if used properly. If you're not just snapping a photo to like share on Instagram or something, if you're composing a shot, especially shots with people in it, it conveys emotion and poses questions. Whereas you just like, oh, look at this beautiful landscape. That's also great. You're appreciating the beauty of whatever you're taking of the art, but the photo itself is not. But back before the camera, we really don't know anything about society from like the Renaissance era in Italy, except for written stuff that has survived, monuments that have survived, like buildings and painting. That's all we know. Yeah. And so it's really fascinating when you see, especially, I've been fascinated by body standard recently, at least looking at Renaissance paintings, because in the Renaissance in Italy, body standards were completely skewed from at least America today. Like women were viewed beautiful if they were very pale skinned, very large, because that meant you were wealthy. You didn't have to work manual labor. You got to stay inside, so you weren't tanned. You had money. And so, like, you see that because all the women are very large and, like, voluptuous. The men are very, thick. Yeah, exactly, shoddy, thick.
A couple C's and a couple K's.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, you could, but the techniques of, like, throughout the different eras, all the famous paintings, whether it's, like, Baroque in the Renaissance era, or you get, Van Gogh or Picasso, they all have like picture perfect technique. They wouldn't be world famous for generations after if they didn't. But they all pose different questions. And the most curious one to me that I haven't been able to freaking figure out is Picasso. Because that dude, I swear, had mental issues. But
didn't they all have something somewhere? Like, weren't they all kind of at some point? Like, wasn't Van Gogh like
Van Gogh clearly had mental issues. He cut his freaking ear off. He cut his ear off and sent it to a woman. But yeah,
what a proposal,
right? Screw a ring. Here's part of my body.
Yeah, exactly.
You said I never listen. This is me listening.
Here you go.
Yeah.
So I guess one thing I want to deduct from that is basic girls taking pictures of their morning Starbucks.
No.
Well, shit, you're going to piss a lot of people off, Joey. I hope you know how.
Yeah, because most of our fan base are teenage girls. I forgot about that.
I know. Lots of girls were chicken.
I'm not trying to poo-poo on parade, but I would inspire them to instead of just like snapping a quick photo and posting it, like, think about the message with each piece, or think about what you're intending to send, and is the actual photo sending that message? So what are you trying to invoke in people when they see your photo?
Yeah, because that's kind of what I've been trying to do with my Instagram, is like, when I was down at Disneyland, like, I don't just go to Disneyland anymore. Like, I bring my camera with me because I've gone so many times. So it's like, oh, well, Disney is what they consider a selfie hotspot. So there's like a whole bunch of places you can go. But I don't really take pictures like that. Like, I try to go to like a theme, like one of the the lands and like try to take a picture of something that you totally just pass by and you're like, oh, where'd this picture
Right.
come from? It's like, oh, this was from Big Thunder Mountain, like,
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I remember. I'm going to totally misquote this line, but I know there was something I saw on the internet somewhere where they were talking about how like an architect looks at things and sees numbers, while an artist looks at things and sees shapes. Do you kind of agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I think that goes for design as well, but design principles, at least graphic design, are completely different than art principles. They're very similar, but they have, like, art has definitely influenced design in terms of graphic design, but they're different in their goal. Shoot, how do I explain this? So like I look at a building and I look how, similar to architecture, I'm going to look at how the natural lighting interacts with the space and what that makes me feel about the space they've created. I'm going to look at how the wind interacts with the space and where they've placed the seating, like outside, in terms of creating a pleasurable experience for people occupying that space. Yeah, no, that's the whole goal, is that you want people to want to be, especially if you're an architect, if you're designing a building, you want people to be there, especially if it's a business.
Trying to get
or
those
if it's an
art owners,
office. Yeah, exactly. That's the whole goal, is you want people to engage with your creation.
Okay.
But I look at a lot at the composition of how they use shapes. Like, it's really fascinating how in art, or in design, graphic design, there's a principle called tension, which is any point. So like any space where two lines come together creates a point, and that creates visual tension, especially if the lines stop there, they don't continue to go through that point.
Okay.
So you can use that tension to direct the person's eye throughout the piece. Architects can do the same thing so they can structure the building in a way that makes it clear where the entrance is, or makes it clear where they want people to flow in general, and it just creates an energy around the place. And so I find that very fascinating.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I guess we kind of walked away from this topic, but to come back just so that people aren't freaking out in their seats. What are some art pieces that you enjoy, or what are some things that stick around? And I can also let Ashton kind of pick this one too, of things that maybe he likes too, just so we kind of if you need a little moment to think about those. But
cleavage shots.
Cleavage shots. Oh, pictures. Okay, I see.
Yeah. Kidding.
Do you need a little moment, or do you have them? Or
I have three. I actually have four I can talk about right now.
Okay, let's do this. Let's do a round robin. We'll Joey, you say one, and then Ashton will say one, and then I'll say one that I like, and we'll do that 4 times. Okay.
Shoot, let me pick one.
Okay, you want Ashton go first?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, Ashton, go
Sure,
first.
I can wing it. So what we're talking about, some like art styles that we like.
Yeah. What do you think is art, and then what is something, not like you can define it, but like what do you think to yourself as, hey, this looks really cool and I like the style of this thing? So whether that be a certain type of animation or a certain type of that. Yeah.
So for me, like one thing I believe to be true is that if you want what you're creating to be considered art and worthy of being called art, because I feel like that's, to me, if you call like a film a work of art, if you call a project a work of art, that's a privilege. You have to earn that.
Yeah.
You don't just get that for throwing shit together, right?
I agree.
So, and I guess the philosophy that a lot of people should have if they want to create a work of art, they have to put, their being into that. They gotta treat that like their baby. They gotta treat it like it is. You gotta wine and dine her, lay her down nice and easy.
Yep.
Lather her up, and
Okay.
you got your
Are we
great
still talking
end
about
result.
art?
Art.
You'd be surprised how much sex plays into art.
But like, I guess for me, like, I see the art that I guess look at the most, like,
What's a
where I
style
see
you
it-
like?
like a style, like I like art in video games. That's
Okay.
that's where I get most of my my art from.
Anything
Um,
specific?
I mean, I like a lot of things. I'm not
Just
super
one of them right now.
into
We'll come back to the other ones too.
uh like a specific game.
Sure.
Um,
Or a series of games that have that. Just like, and then we can come back to the other ones too. Just
well, I mean, I guess I'll start early. Like early games that I feel like with the technology. Fuck, god damn it, technology
Okay.
that they had available to them at the
take two.
I feel
Use
Donkey
take two.
Kong Country was one of my favorite
Interesting.
visually appealing games in
Really
my
interesting.
opinion, just because I suppose they were they for their time they were a little bit above the standard is what you would typically see in my
Okay.
opinion.
Okay. Joey, you want to go first, or you want to go next, or do you want me to go?
Um, I'm really curious what you have to say, actually.
Well, I guess I'll kick it off because this one's kind
Oh
of
wait, do you have a
obvious.
Do you have a segue, or is it?
No, we're still in the same
Okay.
topic.
All right, go ahead.
So I've mentioned Disney before. I've mentioned Disney several times over.
Oh,
I
this
do
is-
like
Mhm.
Disney styles
Mhm.
of animation. My preference is the 2D animation.
Yep.
I do think those are it's just such a marvel of what
Oh,
Walt was able to do in the original era with Snow White and Pinocchio and
I
how
have
they
such a good
did.
story for you. Go on.
Yeah, and so my favorite style is that 2D animation that Walt Disney was able to bring. And as a moviegoer, that's how I kind of go into it. And is there's like Walt loved his animation so much that he designed a camera so that they can like slide out pieces of glass and then take the shot. So they were literally taking pictures. So all of Disney's animations are all stop motion animation, for lack of a better term, because they just took panes of glass and moved them around. So that's how they got like how does this picture of a moon not just grow in size? Well,
Yep.
what they did was they painted a pane of glass with a picture of a moon so that when the camera zoomed in, the moon stayed constantly at its size so that it didn't look massive when it was, because
Yep.
they would pull panes of glass so that it looked like it was zooming into the picture. That to me is so cool, and I love that like sort of art style that Walt wanted to do with his movies. Unfortunately, we've all gone to 3D, but that's the whole thing. I do like those, but those aren't. There's something about those classic Disney movies that are just those 2D animations that you're like, oh man, how the heck did they even do this back in like 1940 whatever? So anyway,
Mm.
I also, subsection of that, I do like classic Mickey over the like modernized Mickey. So I like the
Okay.
old Steamboat Willie type of era, the vaudeville cartoons. I like those. So
Okay, I have a quick question for you.
go ahead.
What specifically about Mickey? What is it about the classic Mickey? Whether it's how he's drawn or like, is it just nostalgia? What is it about him that you like more?
I like his style, like I like the Pac-Man eyes. Like I'm really
Mhm.
into like the eye a way that an animation can do with its eyes for some
Okay.
reason. And like right now I'm looking at this statue that Ashton got me for my for I think a Christmas present or something. It was
Oh,
this
yeah.
Mickey, this like vinylmation Mickey, and it has this big old black eyes. And to me, like, I like the pop vinyls. I don't buy a lot of them because I'm very picky about them too. But like, there's something about that kind of style. And so with classic Mickey, there's this Pac-Man type of eye they do, kind of like a Cuphead did use this type of style as well. And so I don't know, it's just it's that kind of era of, like I was saying, those vaudeville animation type of cartoons,
Mhm.
that there was just a simpler time, they had less to use, so they had to express something based on black and white. And so like to use those colors, and it just I don't know, I felt like progressed Mickey, progressed all of those cartoons into being who they are, because it doesn't matter what they look like. Disney is clearly, the company has clearly used Mickey for 90 years now.
Yeah.
And so clearly the animation style doesn't matter. It's because of the emotions and like that they were able to use throughout the decades and almost century that Mickey has been around. So
really quickly before I get into mine, that is what's called a mascot in terms of design. But it can be used in art as well. So when you create something that resonates so well with the public, you can reuse it in multiple aspects to the point where people are no longer viewing the creation itself as a work of art. They're instead viewing it and putting themselves in that situation as if that creation is itself. So in other words, like every time you view Mickey and like every situation like in film or like even Steamboat Willie and all this stuff that you're viewing him, you're putting yourself in his shoes because he's so recognizable and so like he's placed everywhere that he becomes a mascot and you can resonate with that and you're putting yourself in his shoes. Essentially, you put the audience in your own creation's shoes. Is what I'm trying to say.
I get it.
That's
like,
very, very hard to achieve.
Through them.
Super fucking hard to do. Like I can't. I'm pretty sure Disney did it by accident, but they recognized it and they fucking ran with it. So good for them.
Because like originally it was Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, which I actually do prefer Oswald over Mickey in the sense of design.
But he didn't catch on. That's the thing.
Well, also he lost his rights to Oswald.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you were saying, it was a complete struck of luck because I mean, even one of Walt's like famous quotes is it all began with a mouse. Like so, and exactly. it all started with a mouse or something like that. So it's like, Walt Disney wouldn't be Walt Disney without like how they have at the Disney parks that partner statue. Like Mickey is as much a part of Walt as Walt is a part of Mickey, and then it is continued on to being like Snow White and Peter Pan and all these other movies. But yeah, I do like that classic style of it. But yeah, it's kind of crazy to see that art can go into like a mascot level, or even like logos can go into that like iconic, like the McDonald's arch and things like that. So, or because I'm curious to know how you feel about. I mean, we haven't even got to your favorite thing. We'll go to your favorite thing yet. We'll go to your favorite thing, and I want to ask you one more question about Mickey because we got about 20 minutes left in the show. So we'll go with what's your favorite art?
I don't have a specific favorite art piece, but I do have some that I periodically get gravitated back towards just because of the questions they pose. One is Van Gogh's like Scream.
Oh yeah, the guy holding his face, right?
Exactly, yeah. Just because every time I look at it, it looks like he painted it in 5 minutes. Just because of how hastily the brushstrokes, like the background, nothing is precise except for the person's face. And I know that was like a choice because he wants you visually to be drawn to the thing with the most detail. But at the same time, like it just makes me think like the emotion he had behind this, like all the dark colors with bright accents, like there's something stirring beneath the surface while he was painting this. But there's bright accents, so I just think this thing inside, and all he can do, it's like a battle between light and dark. All he can do is just yell because it's just so frustrating. And yeah, that's just fascinating. It literally looks like he painted this shit in 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing. Of like, so I'm curious to hear what you feel about because like artists will take things from their previous art and then they'll kind of use that technique into others. And so like for I don't know if this is an example of this or how you would define this, but like if we go back to the Mickey conversation, like Mickey always looks like he has two ears. There's never a time where he doesn't have two ears. So, and that was probably a design choice that Walt had. And
yeah, that's branding.
Yeah. So how does that impose into your stuff? And is there things like that you do like try to use or you like about other pieces that maybe Van Gogh or all the the other artists that have used, or maybe
see, that's where it starts to get a little gray in terms of the bridge between art and design, because once I truly believe once Disney realized they had their cash cow in Mickey, it became a design piece and no longer art. At least in terms of Mickey itself. They could be using Mickey in a piece that was a work of, but it's to put the audience in his shoes because he's so recognizable. It's not Mickey himself is art, because then you can display it however you want to convey emotion, but you're designing him in a way where it's recognizable. You can market him with the 2 ears famous thing, you know. Whereas Van Gogh, Picasso, what's his name? I can't remember his name. He's a Renaissance painter. I think it's Baroque. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I'm like,
every-
trying to throw that to us. I don't know.
Yeah, no. Everything like Leonardo da Vinci, you know, with the Sistine Chapel. Like every entity is its own thing. Like they may carry the same techniques over because that's what they're good at, but every entity is painting itself in a completely different social, emotional context where it's conveying different emotion. That's why I'm so fascinated with that one Van Gogh screen piece, because like the brushstrokes are completely different on that piece compared to all his other. Like all the other ones look very calculated. He has very like chippy, like he's picking at the paint like once, but then that was just like a broad swath, like he's just slapping the paint on the can. So yeah, it's I can't even remember.
Yeah, so I mean, is there moments that those artists may have like tried to, like, are there little Easter eggs that they try to throw in of like, oh yeah, I learned this, so or like a progression that those artists have done of like, oh, you can see where Van Gogh started, but then here's where he ended up, and like you can see his progression through that, or was because of what what you were making him sound like is unlike maybe artists like Walt Disney or the other animators that were around at that era of like World War II type era, there's definitely a style that era like used. And so was there a style that they kind of stuck with, or were they just always in the moment? Like, because it sounds like they were always in the moment of how you're describing like Van Gogh, of like he wanted to pick Scream because he was probably dealing with like frustration and he was mad at the world and he's like dealing with this, and he couldn't do anything else but portray a character that he's painting screaming. Like, is there things like that, or through the artists that you enjoy?
I think in terms of classical painting, I think it's definitely very much in the moment. I don't think it really carries over much.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think, especially in like modern art, you look at Andy Warhol, really the start of like modern art, the pop art era.
The soup can.
Exactly. Soup can.
Campbell's soup can.
The one where it's like 6 paintings of his own face because he was so vain. Stuff like that, where he always carried the same motifs. I wouldn't call it Easter eggs necessarily, but it's kind of like, oh, find how he used the same technique in this one that he did in the last one. I don't know. See, in terms of progression, like I think that's just a natural byproduct you can view once an artist's career is over. But I don't necessarily think it's something the artist sets out to create. There may be artists out there who do that on purpose, especially in terms of like 3D creations, whether it's like sculptures, metal work, physical environments, whatever it may be, like physical experience. They may set out to do that because they want to have little Easter eggs in there where it's like, oh, I found the tiny little goat sculpture or whatever. But it's not necessarily something that I've seen, at least that I've interpreted it as intention in paintings, or in photography. But yeah, it's tough to spot because especially modern artists, like with photography, their body of work is so much larger because it takes so much less time to create a photograph as it does like a painting that's going to last for 300, 400, 1,000 years, you know?
Yeah. And not lose its like it's, I don't know, it's emotional rise, as opposed to like a photo can be like, oh, well, that was taken in the 70s, so you got like well, we got time for one more question here. Ashton, do you have anything that you want to go into?
Not specifically.
Okay. So I guess
I do want.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I just want to ask you guys' opinion on modern art, and then I want to tell you that price of the painting I sent you.
That's true. Okay.
Oh, boy.
So what would be like examples of modern art? Because I mean, we do live in Washington, so it's a little more hit in the face as what is defined as modern art.
Shoot.
Or like maybe an example of it. Is it just the weird
I
like?
hate
Here's the shape.
Like, literally. Okay, so for context for the audience, I sent them a photo of this painting where it's a blue canvas, and I'm pretty sure they just had a piece of painter's tape in the middle of the canvas. They painted the whole thing blue and then ripped it off, and that thing sold for $44 million.
Whoa!
Oh my God.
Yes.
Didn't
So,
know it was
like,
that much.
That's modern art in a sense for me, where it's like I get that they're sure you can. To me, it's like you're not walking. You're not walking the audience what you want them to feel. Like there's always room for interpretation, but like I feel like the screen painting or Leonardo da Vinci's like my God and Adam like touching fingers painting, like those are pretty specific on their message, you know? Whereas like modern art, it's very much like let's just paint something and freaking see what they feel, and then we're gonna collect a check on it. So that's where it becomes like Marvel movies to me, or like the superhero blockbuster movies. It's starting to lose its sense of intentionality and storytelling and technique in favor of let's create something that's literally there's only one of these in the world, so people are going to fight over it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Like to me, like I said, I like, I guess the use of colors, like a lot of colors.
Yeah.
And so when I see modern art, where it's just like, because of what every time I see modern art, it's usually, I don't know, this is me stereotyping it, so correct me if I'm wrong, but it's usually like one or two colors, and boom, there you go. Now I know I'm kind of contradicting myself because I did mention I liked the old classic like black and white cartoons, but the thing about that style was not only did I liked what they did with it, and they weren't like just like how you're saying this painting. By the way, link in the description for you guys if you guys want to check out this painting that Joey sent us. This painting that I'm looking at
$44 million.
Yeah, $44 million. Well, I mean, Mickey is priceless, but
that's a little different.
But the thing about this is like when I see this, it's only two colors, sorta, and there isn't much going on here. Like, you know,
nothing.
I guess to play devil's advocate, it's, you know, you can see what you want to see.
It's
like, do you
not
see
even
a window?
It's not even a diagonal line. It's literally a tennis court zoomed in. Like that's all it freaking is.
Or maybe it's the ocean with a road down the middle of it. I don't know, but I think that's what they want you to do is the whole like it's art is what you think it is.
Yeah, it's so done. Like you could paint a black circle on a white canvas and be like, "Oh, what do you think it is? $50 million." Like,
and you would rightfully be owed that $50 million.
Apparently, I'm doing it wrong.
I don't know, Ashton. What do you think? What do you think
of modern art?
Yeah, of what you see this picture here.
So, okay, a lot of like, okay, so for this picture, for example, I can fucking do that. So
no, you literally could. It's not that like
you don't even have to draw inside any lines. Because put tape down and call it good. Like,
well, even then, you can actually see some of the paint has actually slipped into the line.
So it's even perfect.
I'm gonna send you guys another one. I believe this is technically modern art because it was created recently, but this I believe is fantastic. Sorry, go on.
Oh wow. See this I like.
That's
this
art.
I like here.
That's art.
Yeah. Some steps, probably contemplating life. You know.
No, yeah, and clearly she's
like me back.
See,
no, he fucking doesn't like you.
What I get from it, based on the color palette chosen, there's a lot of dark colors. Obviously, she's a dark color, which could mean either it's a silhouette, so she's like emotionally cast in the shadows, or she's of color herself.
Okay.
And But because there's a lot of blue,
Very
she's either
2019
depressed,
of
but
you.
she's hopeful about the future.
Yeah, no, but this also goes back to what I like, those eye popping colors, like, you know, how I mentioned Mad Max and Blade Runner. Like there's that sense of eye popping,
it's pretty
color that is happening right here. That
fun.
I would hang
Art.
this up. I mean,
Art.
you got another one. I don't think we could put that in the link, but there's a very
it was just a bladed image.
We'll have to put the logos over.
well, it's not gonna be in the video. You'll have to put the links. It'll be in the links. There's a third image here. 18 and over. Don't put it in there. Okay, fine. We'll put it there. But yeah. So question. We have like 5 minutes left. Is there any art that you guys hang in your rides' house?
Oh, video game posters, ones that are community made.
Okay.
Definitely.
I like that community made. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
I don't need official stuff.
I have a couple stuff here.
Because that's what art is about.
Yeah, I also bought 2 pieces from Disneyland, actually, at the D cast member store. I got to go in there. But there's the, like, I don't know if you remember this, Joey, but there's posters representing each of the areas and some of the rides. And so there are paintings that are made, like poster art, that is designed so it looks like, oh, here are like the trailers for the next movies, is kind of what they're trying to portray. Anyway, I have a Pirates of the Caribbean one, and then I also got this like cute little like Mr. Toad's Wild Ride looking one, and it's really like stylized and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, I definitely have a sense of art style. I tend to like the simplistic, chubby looking things, I guess. I don't know. I don't know. There is kind of an art style. Like I like Adventure Time's art style, like that kind of stuff, where it's very like, is it eye popping type of thing? The colors, I think, is what draws me.
Nice caricatures. Yeah, I got you. Okay. Shoot. I really like. I don't know. It's not really impressionistic. It's I like when the art that, at least when I was living at home, I don't have any of the art in my apartment. Baroque. But the art that, like, I definitely think I had an influence on like what my mom hung up in her house. The art that I always am drawn to, like I want to hang this up, is stuff where it's a realistic image, but it's either painted, drawn, it's a photograph in a way that implies that it's done in unconventional methods or quickly, but it still conveys an emotion. For example, like she has this painting of a horse where it's just like splashes of color. It literally looks like someone smacked the brush on the page a bunch of times, but you can clearly see a horse, and the color composition's like great. It doesn't like convey any messages, but it's pleasing, you know, and that it doesn't serve a purpose other than to be itself. Therefore, in my opinion, it's art. So that's the kind of stuff I like, but I definitely like color and the interaction between color, like you said.
What about you, Ashton? I mean, you kind of said what you did, but is there anything else that you want to add to it, or?
I like twiddles.
You did. I don't know if you actually. Is this a Squidward thing? You put the Squidward
art
poster?
at its finest.
That's modern art.
No, that literally is modern art.
I will say one other thing. My all-time favorite game that I consider art, that wasn't the most well-received of the franchise. I'm a big Zelda fan, through and through. But one of my favorite games, because I consider art, is Twilight Princess. The reason I say that.
Interesting.
Yes. Gameplay-wise, meh.
Because I thought you were going to say, when you were talking about art, I thought you were going to say Wind Waker.
No. Wind Waker is cool. It's toon style. You know, it's refreshing, very colorful. But the reason I like Twilight Princess more is because they did a really good job capturing the mood that they wanted, which was, you're in the shit, and the whole world is like in disarray. It's a dark, dark time.
So kind of like the same thing of why Joey likes The Dark Knight.
Yeah. You know, they did a really good job capturing that with the soundtrack. Oh my god. With the the soundtrack, even the visuals, it's a very there's a lot of dark, grays and blues. And just it's a very sad time. It's a very sad game. And it just really they encapsulated that perfectly. Now, it does not resonate with a lot of people because not a lot of people want to play that kind of game and feel that kind of way when they're playing a video game. But they definitely, I feel they captured what they wanted to capture, and they did a really good job of it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm laughing because Joey's still posting modern art posters, and there's literally a picture of a guy staring at a red circle in a white frame, or just outside the white frame, a dude staring at 3 panels of portraits that are just white, and a case that has a pineapple in it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to conclude.
Ashton, your explanation of that was really beautiful. I'm sorry to just absolutely bastardize it.
Yeah.
But I did just find an even better one.
The listener will totally be like, oh man, that's so good. And then now I'm looking at a baby in a sandwich. So it's like, remember, ladies and gentlemen, links are in the description below if you guys want to check out all the pictures that Joey has put into this one. Before we leave, Joey, are there any plugs that you want to throw out there? Any social media you want people to follow on?
Shoot. I don't.
Where can they find you if they needed to have some work done?
Well, you can find me at, I don't even know my Instagram freaking handle.
I think I have your personal one. I don't know if you made another one.
I don't have a business one. It's just me.
Okay.
But I my personal design portfolio is joeygeraci3.com. JoeyGerac 3.com. But I don't want to plug myself. I really just want to inspire people to think for themselves and to question things, and whatever it is. It could be anything. It could be why am I walking through this door? What made me go through this? Was it signage? Was it the way the space was designed? What is drawing me to this environment, this experience? Just think for yourselves. That's all I want to inspire people to do.
Okay, so you don't want me to say that your Instagram is Joey_Geraci3?
I mean, go ahead. I won't stop you. But yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll leave that in the description just in case if you want people to go and check out some of the stuff you're doing. But yeah, there you go. There's some inspiring words from an old friend of mine. But ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for... Oh my gosh. Posted another picture that is a dude digging in a pile of what seems to be Legos or jelly beans. I don't know what this is. Maybe modern that's art. The art itself is to think what it is.
Modern art at its finest. Just throw some Legos in a corner.
Thank you guys so much for listening. If you listen to the podcast, you are listening currently on iTunes. Just search Primal Target, or you can go over to Podbean and search. If you are an Android listener, and you can go and subscribe to us over there. Just search Primal Target. We're on YouTube. Search it. You'll see our logo. It looks like a Target logo, not the Target like the store, but Target as in a bullseye. That is where you can find all of our YouTube videos. You can find the video version of this, as well as many other things, and a lot more things to come, because we're almost, we're getting through this season of PT3600, and when it comes to a close, there will be more stuff to come. Thank you, Joey, for being on here. It's taking the time out of your day to be on here.
My pleasure.
And as publicly, I want to say thanks once again for designing our logo, and hopefully it's slapped across the world eventually in the future. But
yeah.
We'll have to bring you on so we can get you on like a PT Plays or something like that eventually.
Dude, I would love that, especially if it's Rocket League.
All right,
there you go. I will play any game you want poorly.
Hey, I play Rocket League
pretty
poorly,
freaking good.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, is there any plugs that you want to plug there, Ashton?
Mixer.com/Primal Target, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Ashton_Dom. And yeah, we got Instagram too, guys. So all the links are down in the description. So make sure to hit
following. Why aren't you guys?
Exactly.
And not just
wanna be an
because
artist?
they had me on a podcast to plug me.
Yeah.
I was already following before this.
If you want to be just follow Primal Target on all social media and all of our platforms, and you can be an artist too.
Yes. Good night, everybody. Is that a lobster with a phone?
Yep. The
It
title
speaks
is
to me, Joey.
Stupid, Expensive Modern Art.
Oh my God.
Looks like a bath toy.
Yep, pretty much.
Oh yeah.